All right, welcome in everyone to the deep dive. We've got a really fascinating one today. We're diving into the world of Bob Camblin. And he's an artist, born back in 1928 in Oklahoma. And he's got this really interesting legacy. Well, for one, he left behind a huge amount of work, all different kinds of mediums, oils, acrylics,
Hmm.
um, watercolors, drawings, prints, even painted paper, but a lot of it's kind of hard to find.
It is, yeah. His pieces are quite rare.
Yeah.
Highly sought after, though.
Yeah.
So that tells you something right there.
Yeah.
That even though he's not maybe a household name for everybody,
Right.
he clearly had a lot of respect from his peers
Yeah.
and people who understood his vision. And I think part of what contributes to that is his unique style, his
Right.
unconventional approach.
Yeah.
And he was very well trained. He went to the Kansas City Art Institute,
Yeah.
got a Fulbright to go study in Italy.
Oh, wow.
And then later on, he taught at like a ton of different institutions: Ringling, Illinois, Detroit, Utah, Rice.
Yeah.
So quite a legacy there.
Yeah. So we're going to try to unpack all of that, or at least some of it, in this deep dive.
Yeah.
And luckily, you've brought in a bunch of interesting material for us to go through. We've got excerpts from Camblin's own writing. It's called Bob Camblin Quotes and Other Mysteries. And then we have his biography, critical reviews, and then even some analysis of one of his paintings, Springtime.
Yep.
And for that, we're pulling from a written analysis and a YouTube exploration.
Yeah. Yeah, we've got a lot to go through. But for you, the listener, I think what we're trying to do here is give you a curated experience of this really fascinating artist. We've done a lot of sifting through dense material, trying to pull out the core ideas.
Mm.
Yeah. Just give you a sense of what made this guy tick.
Yeah.
Without necessarily having to wade through, all the densest stuff yourself.
Right.
So,
Okay. So let's jump in. I mean, one of the things that really struck me early on was this emphasis, at least in some of his quotes, about sticking with what he calls common sense and the perfectly average view of the universe. Um, and it's interesting because, I mean, he really seemed to believe that this perspective was the way to truly appreciate miracles. He even mentions both science and magic.
oh, interesting.
Yeah, and he's kind of hoping for this bright gray where they both kind of come together. So it's almost like he's really comfortable with ambiguity, or maybe even like actively searching for it.
Yeah, that's fascinating. It really makes you think about what he means by perfectly average,
Yeah.
right? It doesn't sound like he's saying to just settle for the mundane or the boring. It's almost like he's saying that if you look closely enough at the ordinary, that's where you find the really extraordinary, the potential,
Yeah.
the magic maybe.
Right.
And that really aligns with some of the other stuff we know about him.
Right.
Like he was really into Zen and the I Ching.
Yeah.
And the biography mentions that. And those philosophies are all about intuition,
Right.
interconnectedness, how everything's kind of cyclical.
Right.
And it's all about a deeper awareness of things that are, maybe a little subtler than what we see on the surface.
Right. Yeah. And then he also talks about the sixth sense, this idea of senza dubio, without a doubt. So it's like this inherent knowing, this gut feeling. What do you make of that?
That's really intriguing.
Yeah.
It seems to be about trusting your intuition, right? Your gut. This direct kind of knowing
Right.
that maybe bypasses the need for proof.
Right.
And again, that echoes the Zen thing, this idea of direct experience.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a mystical element to this guy's thinking. Seems like it, anyway.
Yeah. And then there's all this stuff about his connection to nature. I mean, several of his quotes mention like cottonwood trees and finding something in nature that completes you and then surrendering to it. And then there's this image of the cosmos waving through leaves on the trees. Like he really saw himself as part of something bigger.
He did, yeah. It seems like nature was a huge source of inspiration for him. And not just that, but kind of a philosophical grounding,
Yeah.
and this whole surrendering after finding completion thing
Right.
that really ties into this idea of impermanence.
Right.
And we see that in his writings a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And the analysis of Springtime really picks up on that too.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's about recognizing that we're part of something that's always changing,
Right.
always in motion.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting, that this idea of impermanence, it comes up really strongly in the quote about aging. It's from Salt Air Summer 1967. And he's talking about how when he sees decay, the memory of songs and music just ceases, like it's just gone.
Wow.
And that's a really powerful image, right? Like all of a sudden there's just silence.
It is, yeah. It's like beauty and vitality just vanish when confronted with decay. And that really reinforces this awareness of, everything being fleeting. And like you said, the springtime analysis talks about that too, right? It describes spring as like this season of impermanence, a passage, not a fixed state.
Right.
So it makes you think about how much we cling to things, forgetting that they're always, always changing.
Yeah. And there's, even with all this awareness of impermanence, I mean, there's still so much emotion in his work. Especially, I noticed it in these shorter verses that he has. Like, he talks about soaring on a bright day, but then feeling earthbound. And then there's this almost like moving away from pain, like he's actively trying to get away from it. And then this one's tough. It's about true love kind of becoming indifference as a way to protect yourself.
Yeah. That's heartbreaking, almost.
Yeah.
But it's also, like, so raw and vulnerable, I mean, all those little verses, they're just packed with these really intense feelings.
Yeah.
And that contrast, the soaring and then the earthbound, that speaks to this tension
Right.
that we all feel, I think.
Yeah.
Like striving for something, but being pulled back down
Right.
by
Yeah.
reality.
Yeah. There's actually it's almost like a haiku. It's one of his quotes. Bright day and I soar, how cruel that my soul is attached to this earth and yet.
Wow.
It's really powerful.
It is, yeah.
Okay, so shifting gears a little bit, I want to talk about his views on art and creativity. And it seems like he went through this really interesting evolution in his thinking. He started with this art for art's sake idea, but then he seemed to move to something more like art for life's sake, or maybe even art for survival's sake.
Yeah.
It's like he was trying to figure out what art was really for,
Yeah, it's like he's digging deeper, right? Going beyond just the surface level.
Right.
Like, art has to have a function,
Yeah.
a purpose.
Right. Yeah.
It has to be about something more than just, looking pretty.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And then he also talks a lot about process and awareness. And there's one quote where he says, process and awareness of it cannot be failure.
Ooh, I like that.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
good.
So it's almost like it's the journey, not the destination kind of a thing.
Yeah.
It's the act of creating, the being present in it.
Right.
That's what really matters,
It's the awareness that makes it, like, impossible to truly fail, You're always learning,
Right.
always discovering something, even if it's not what you set out to do.
Yeah, and that kind of connects with this idea of stepping off the train of thought. That's what he calls it. And he says, that's where you find true power in laughter.
That's interesting.
And then biography even connects this to Zazen, that kind of meditation.
Right.
Where the aimless mind actually finds its focus.
Yeah. It's about getting out of your head, right?
Yeah.
Letting go of all the usual thought patterns.
Right.
And that's where you find the good stuff.
Yeah. And he even talks about resisting, like, learning.
Really?
Yeah. He says it's better to fail and relax and feel and think. So it's like he's not anti-knowledge or anything, but he's really emphasizing, like, direct experience,
Yeah. Like unlearning, maybe.
Yeah.
Shedding all the stuff you think you know to get to something real.
Yeah. Yeah. And then he makes this distinction between believing and knowing.
Okay.
And he talks about how mystics, people who have, like, these spiritual experiences, he says
Right.
they have direct experience. That goes beyond logic.
Right.
So again, it's like this intuition, this feeling,
This knowing that you can't necessarily explain, right?
Right.
It's beyond words.
Right.
And that fits with, a lot of mystical traditions. They're not about just reading books and thinking about things. It's about having a direct encounter with something bigger.
Yeah, yeah. And then this one's pretty out there. Everyone is a mirror, and that is magic. What do you think he's getting at with that?
Oh, it makes you think, right?
It does.
I think it's about how we're all connected,
Yeah.
Like when you interact with someone, they're reflecting something back to you. And maybe it's something you need to see, something you haven't noticed about yourself.
Right.
And the fact that he calls it magic, that just adds this layer of mystery and wonder to it.
Yeah, yeah. And he also talks about two kinds of magic. Magic for power, which he seems to think is bad, and magic for seeing, which he thinks is good.
Interesting.
And he even connects this intellectual and magical seeing to art and understanding.
So he's making a distinction between, like, manipulating things versus, like, perceiving them more deeply, right?
Yeah.
Like, one is about control and the other is about insight.
Right, right. It's kind of like using your powers for good.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's interesting because he also talks about how hard it is to be an artist, especially in what he calls a disposable art culture,
Yeah.
where everyone's always looking for the next new thing.
It's like you can't just explore an idea deeply anymore, you know? You have to keep reinventing yourself
Right,
just
right.
to stay relevant.
Right, right. And then he talks about this mystic switch,
Mm.
which is basically like a gut feeling,
Okay.
a visceral reaction that tells you something is true.
Like a deep knowing, right?
Yeah,
But it comes from your body, not your head.
right. So he's really into intuition, it seems like.
He is, yeah.
And it's worth noting, the biography mentions this, he was a really collaborative artist.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he even sometimes signed his work as anonymous. So it's like the ego wasn't that important to him.
Yeah, it's about the work itself, not
Yeah.
the artist.
Right.
Which, again, ties into all that Zen stuff we were talking about earlier, the non-attachment.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so let's talk about communication. He seems to have some really strong opinions about argument and agreement,
Okay.
and he doesn't really think that they lead to understanding.
Yeah.
Like, you can win an argument
Right.
or you can agree on something,
Yeah.
but you're not necessarily connecting on a deeper level.
Yeah, it's like talking past each other sometimes.
Right,
You know?
right. And I love these examples he gives about how to end an argument with a pessimist and how to end an argument with an optimist.
What are those?
To the pessimist, you just say, you're absolutely right.
Okay.
And to the optimist, you say, it's a banana.
Oh, that's funny.
Right. It's like there's just no point in arguing with people sometimes.
Yeah, it's like you're just acknowledging their perspective, but you're not really engaging with it.
Yeah.
You're just sidestepping the whole thing.
Yeah, yeah. And then he has this question that he poses, and it's kind of a weird one. It's about whether people diminish in our eyes as they move away physically.
That's interesting.
So it's like, do we really care about people who are far away?
Right.
Or do we only care about the people who are right in front of us,
It makes you think about how physical presence affects our relationships.
Yeah.
Like, is it just about proximity?
Right.
Or is there something deeper going on?
Right. And then he also talks about how he was trying so hard to stop arguing, and it kept turning into an argument.
Oh, yeah.
And I think a lot of people can relate to that.
We've all been there. It's like the harder you try to control things, the more they spiral out of control.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so his views on change. He seems to be more into evolution than revolution. He says revolution is misunderstanding, and evolution is understanding. And true balance is found in individual minds.
So he's saying that real change has to come from within, right?
Yeah.
Not from some external upheaval.
Right. And that actually connects really nicely with the analysis of springtime.
Really?
Yeah. It links the painting to hexagram 49 of the I Ching, which is about revolution or molting, like shedding your skin, you know? And it's all about embracing transformation as a natural part of life.
So even though change can be scary, it's necessary.
Right.
It's part of the cycle.
Right. And then he has these two verses that are really kind of cryptic.
Okay.
One is stay out the last if lucky, and the other is 4 times the trap is sprung and 3 times the quarry flees, changing bait the last time.
Wow. Those are dense.
Yeah. And I'm not sure what they mean, but I feel like they're about art making somehow.
Yeah, maybe about the creative process.
Yeah.
Or maybe about, like, engaging with the world.
Yeah, like stay out the last if lucky. Maybe that's about knowing when to stop,
Yeah.
Like when to let go of an idea.
Yeah, or maybe knowing when to disengage.
Right.
Like, pick your battles.
Right. And then, this one's a biggie. First chaos, then order, or vice versa.
Ooh.
I mean, he's really wrestling with some fundamental questions here.
He is, yeah. It's like he's trying to figure out the very essence of creation.
Right.
Yeah. Where does it all begin?
Yeah. All right. So let's talk specifically about Springtime, the painting.
Okay.
Because it seems to be a really important piece for understanding a lot of his themes.
The dotes, yeah.
And I know not everyone has seen it, so can you kind of paint a picture for us?
Okay, so imagine this. You've got this central figure, and it's Flora, the Roman goddess of spring. And she's got this, like, radiant energy about her, flowing golden hair. And she's wearing this floral wreath, but it's not just flowers. There are these orbs woven into it. We'll get to those in a minute. And then off to the side, there are these words painted in big, bold letters, springtime.
Hmm.
And they're done in these vibrant reds and yellows and blues. And the background is kind of dark
Hmm.
with these, like, scribbly marks. So it really makes flora and the text stand out.
Yeah, it sounds really striking.
It is.
Okay, so what about Flora herself?
Mm.
I mean, she's not just like a typical beautiful goddess,
No,
right?
she's not.
Yeah.
I mean, she's definitely beautiful, but her face, it's been described as, like, mask-like,
Mm.
almost like between human and something mystical.
Mm.
So that it emphasizes that dual nature,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
goddess, but also woman,
Yeah.
nature's power, but also an earthly presence.
Mm.
And her eyes, they're looking right at you.
Mm.
Like she's engaging with you directly.
Yeah.
But there's also this, like, veiled quality to her face. Like she's
Well, yeah.
holding something back,
Right.
which
Yeah.
I think speaks to the mystery of nature, you know. We can experience it, but we can never fully know it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about those orbs in her crown.
Oh, yeah.
Because we've mentioned them a few times.
Right.
And those colors, they seem really important.
They are, yeah. So usually red represents life,
Hmm.
blue represents death,
Hmm.
and yellow represents humanity.
Hmm.
And the fact that they're all there together
Hmm.
in Flora's crown,
Right.
it really emphasizes how those three things are connected,
Yeah.
especially in spring, you know?
Mm.
It's all about renewal,
Right.
life triumphing over death,
Mm.
and humanity's right there in the middle of it all.
Right. And the analysis we looked at, it also compares this painting to Renaissance works like Botticelli's Primavera,
Yeah.
but it also says that Camblin's approach is more modern.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
he's definitely drawing on that tradition of celebrating flora,
Right.
but he's doing it in a way that's very contemporary.
Right.
Like the way he uses brushstrokes, it's very expressionistic.
Mm.
And then there's the text, which is really bold.
Right.
And Flora herself, she's not idealized in the same way that you see in those Renaissance paintings.
Mm.
It's more, I don't know, more free, more expressive.
Yeah. And speaking of the text, that's a pretty bold choice too, right? Putting words right there in the painting.
It is, yeah. It makes you think about movements like pop art,
Mm.
you know, with their bold graphics.
Right.
Even someone like Cy Twombly, who used text in a lot of his work.
Mm.
But Camblin's doing something different, I think. It's not just descriptive.
Mm.
The text is like part of the energy of the painting.
Yeah. Yeah. And the YouTube analysis talks about this cosmic dance of perpetual return
Right.
and how the painting shows this connection between life, death, and humanity.
Yeah. And that's what makes it so powerful, I think. It's not just a pretty picture of spring.
Right.
It's about this cycle,
Mm.
this constant interplay.
Yeah. And it even talks about this Zen idea of seeing Flora's face as an illusion of permanence. So even though she's this vibrant, beautiful figure,
Right.
she's still subject to change.
She is, yeah. Nothing stays the same,
Hmm.
not even beauty.
Right. And those orbs, they're back again.
Yeah.
They're like this reminder that life and death are always there together.
They are, yeah. You can't have one without the other.
Right.
It's all part of the same cycle.
Yeah. And the analysis ends with this message about embracing change.
Hmm.
You know, it compares it to like a tree shedding its leaves or a river flowing.
Right.
And it says that a wise person doesn't fear death.
Hmm.
They move with the cycle.
It's a beautiful idea, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
That acceptance,
Hmm.
that surrender.
Yeah. And it even connects this to creativity.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's saying that like you should embrace whatever creative phase you're in
Hmm.
because it's going to change,
Right.
just like the seasons.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
The creative process as a cycle.
Right. Okay, just really quick, I want to touch on a few things from the book review of The Art of Everything. It talks about how Camblin's art is more about asking questions than giving answers.
Right.
And how everyday objects can become like these really powerful symbols.
Yeah.
And then there's this whole exploration of illusions and traps and even stillness.
It's about like challenging the viewer.
Right.
Making them think.
Yeah. Not just giving them something easy to digest.
Right.
Okay, so last but not least, we've got all this information about Camblin's artistic evolution, his intent. And we're pulling this from his biography and different reviews.
Yep.
And we see this journey from early abstract impressionism to this style he developed called Mouches Volantes,
Okay.
which is all about creating illusions with dots and dashes.
Hmm.
And it's clear that he really wanted to like question reality, you know? Like, what is real, what isn't?
Yeah.
And he even had this goal to remake Goya in 20th century terms.
Wow.
So, I mean, pretty ambitious.
Yeah, he was going for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he also had this really playful side. He said, if you think it's funny, I'll get serious. And if you think it's serious, I'll make a joke of it.
That's great.
Right.
So you never really know where he's coming from.
Right.
Which just adds to the mystery, I think.
Yeah.
And all that experimentation, all that questioning, it creates these layers of meaning in his work.
Right.
These hidden secrets.
Yeah. And the key is to look beyond the obvious.
Right.
To really pay attention to the details.
Yeah. He's rewarding the careful viewer.
Right, right. Okay, so to wrap things up, what are like the key takeaways for our listeners?
Well, I think it's about embracing paradox.
Okay.
You know, like Camblin believed in common sense,
Right.
but he was also open to the miraculous.
Right.
He was deeply connected to nature.
Mm.
But he also knew that everything changes.
Right.
He was constantly questioning,
Mm-hmm.
but he also trusted his intuition.
Yeah. Yeah. And it seems like springtime really embodies all of that.
It does, yeah. It's this beautiful, vibrant image, but it's also a reminder of the cyclical nature of life.
Right.
The constant interplay of creation and destruction.
Right. Right. Okay, so here's a final thought for you to ponder. Think about Camlin's idea of stepping off the train of thought. How could you apply that in your own life?
Right.
You know, maybe in your work, in your relationships, just in how you see the world.
And then how could you embrace that bright, gray area, the space between opposing ideas?
Right.
What insights might you find there?
Yeah, that's a good one. And if you're interested in learning more about Bob Camblin, I definitely recommend checking out his work if you can find it.
Yeah.
And you can also explore some of these philosophical concepts that we talked about,
Right.
like Zen Buddhism or the I Ching,
Yeah.
whatever resonates with you.
Right. There's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the world of Bob Camblin.
Yeah. Thanks for listening.
And we'll see you next time.